9-year-old Jose Padilla was riding on his horse through the desert of New Mexico in the year 1945. He was 30 miles from the Trinity nuclear test site, where Robert Oppenheimer detonated the world's first atomic bomb. 1 month after the atomic bomb test, he saw a UFO crash land not far from the area. Now, in the year 2024, at 87 years old, he reveals an incredible secret that he has kept his entire life. Not only did he see the crashed UFO, but he entered it and stole a piece from the inside.
Time to relax. Definitely time for some Wrigley's Spearmint gum.
Wrigley's Spearmint?
What?
What is Wrigley's Spearmint?
Well, it's pure chewing satisfaction.
Pure chewing satisfaction? Need more data, please.
Whoa!
Wrigley's Spearmint is cool. And refreshing.
This I gotta see.
Wrigley's Spearmint has a mouth-pleasing feeling.
Can't argue with that. Now, what happens if I cross-reference satisfying?
Chewing enjoyment goes on and on.
That computes. So what's your analysis?
Wrigley's Spearmint is pure chewing satisfaction.
Yeah. So how come you never talked to me before?
Wrigley's Spearmint is pure chewing satisfaction.
If you pay attention to these types of stories, then you would know that UFO sightings are very common in areas where there are nuclear tests, nuclear disasters, and where nuclear weapons are stored. I've seen so many videos of military personnel talking about seeing UFO sightings above their facilities, even some saying that during these sightings, all of the powers to their nuclear weapons would shut off, almost as if the UFOs are the ones saying, "We're the ones in control. Don't do anything stupid." Before we continue on to Jose's story and learn what happened to him back in 1945, I think we would benefit from a broader painting, if you will. There are so many documented incidents that further push the connection between UFOs and humans toying with nuclear power. In 2011, the nuclear power plant in Fukushima, Japan had a horrible accident. It was the second worst nuclear disaster in history after Chernobyl in 1986. On March 11th, in 2011, an undersea megathrust earthquake occurred in the Pacific Ocean, 72 kilometers or nearly 45 miles east of the Oshika Peninsula of the Tohoku region. It lasted approximately 6 minutes and caused a tsunami. It is sometimes known in Japan as the Great East Japan Earthquake. The earthquake and tsunami resulted in 19,759 dead. There were also 2,553 that were never found, a total of 22,312 lost lives. The earthquake was the largest magnitude ever recorded in Japan and the third largest in the world since 1900. There were 13,386 aftershocks, which, if you don't know, are more earthquakes. They lasted until March of 2018. 7 years of aftershocks. So, needless to say, it was a bad one. After this mega earthquake followed a mega tsunami. The tsunami wiped out the power grid of the Fukushima nuclear power plant that was located on the coast of Japan. A bad spot to put a nuclear power plant in a country riddled with earthquakes, if you ask me. So not only is Japan now dealing with the apocalyptic terror of the earthquake, then a tsunami, they now have their own personal Chernobyl unfolding. All 3 reactors and their cores overheated and melted. Radioactive liquid is now leaking everywhere and being pulled into the ocean. A monk at a nearby temple named Tomonori Izumi said he saw UFOs appear during the disaster. In a Vice article, he was quoted to have said, "The UFOs came after the explosion. There were so many of them. I was shocked. Radioactive energy was leaking everywhere. I believe the UFOs came to readjust the flow of radioactive energy in order to save us. That's my theory anyway."
満潮時刻が表示されています。石巻市鮎川では11時50分頃間もなくということになります。相馬では0時、石巻港では0時。
Sometimes the simplest ideas are the best ones. Introducing the Elite 50LX from Honda, the scooter that comes with a trunk. It'll hold dinner for 4 and a small orchestra. It's the perfect place for your helmet and jacket. In fact, there's so much room, you can take Frankenstein, King Kong, and Godzilla for a ride. The Honda Elite 50LX, the scooter that comes with a trunk.
We now jump back in time before 2011 to the night of March 24th, 1967. Robert Salas, a 26-year-old U.S. Air Force lieutenant, is 65 feet or 20 meters below ground in Montana. Down there is where nuclear missiles are stored. This location is a secret military base where they have underground nuclear missiles that can be shot out of the ground. These places are kept very secret. You wouldn't be able to find this place or fly over it. Down underground, Robert is guarding the controls. Suddenly, everything in the underground base turns off, something that is not possible. All of the controls to the weapons went dead. Robert thought they were under attack. One of his first thoughts was it was the Russians. But Soviet technology could not have disabled the missile's guidance and control systems, Robert said. You would have to have sent individual signals to each missile within seconds. We had no power. This had never happened before, and we have nothing that could do that now. Now, shortly before Robert's controls shut off, a security guard up on the surface was panicking and trying to call Robert. The security officer saw an oval-shaped object above him in the sky. It was pulsating and glowing with red and orange lights. It was hovering over their secret base. He said the object was making unusual controlled maneuvers. It was flying very fast, coming to a dead stop, then reversing course and making 90-degree turns. Robert said the officer was screaming in the phone. He was terrified. Robert told him to secure the facility at all costs. More security officers on the ground scrambled to other launch sites within the complex, where they saw more glowing objects hovering over those other sites. Each spot of the space that had a nuclear missile launch port coming out of the ground had an object floating above it. In a meeting with his commander and a special investigations officer, he was told that the incident did not involve any kind of Air Force exercise. Robert signed a non-disclosure agreement and never talked about it until the year 1996. So, within 60 seconds, these UFOs flew over this secret military base, turned off all the power, turned it back on, and then disappeared. Basically saying, yeah, we're the ones in control here. Dr. Jensen Anderson spoke on the subject and said, "It goes back to the 1930s when the science and research was being done to understand fission, but then it really heats up in the 1940s, in particular, right after the detonation of the 2 atomic bombs in Japan in 1945. Then it is decisive, it's conclusive. You see one after another event occurring in proximity, specifically to the sites associated with nuclear weapons. There are numerous cases," she said, listing sightings near Kirkland Air Force Base, Sandia National Laboratories, and other places where nuclear weapons were stored. Anderson said one of the best examples of this activity around nuclear facilities was the 1986 Chernobyl nuclear disaster in Ukraine. There was a lot of UFO activity reported there also. At the height of the fire in Chernobyl, the reading was 3,000, this is going to be hard for me to say, milliroentgens, which is a unit of ionizing radiation. And right at the height of the fire, many people witnessed a UFO appear over the facility. It stayed for 3 minutes, shone a light right at Unit 4, and departed. They took another reading, and it had apparently dropped to 800, just in a few minutes. That seems like a very conscious attempt to remediate the danger caused by the malfunction here.
To save his world, he needs a hero.
I am the greatest swordsman that ever lived.
Instead, he's got a reckless warrior. And it's all downhill from there. From George Lucas and Ron Howard.
You are great.
Willow, rated PG. Starts Friday. Check newspapers for a theater near you.
Now, let's get back to Jose Padilla in 1945, where we began our story. July 16, 1945, the first atomic bomb was dropped in the New Mexico desert. This test by Robert Oppenheimer was 30 miles from young Jose. He was able to see the light in the sky from the atomic blast. The explosion was able to be seen up to 150 miles from the site. With Jose only being 30 miles away, he not only saw it, but he felt it. He said he was drinking chocolate milk when the blast hit and it knocked him on the ground. Then, 1 month later, he was riding his horse through his father's ranch with a friend when they heard a loud boom. Jose thought it was another bomb test. Then his friend pointed out smoke in the sky not too far away. They rode over to the smoke and found some type of craft crashed on the ground. At the site, he said he saw 3 individuals running around. He first thought they were kids because they were small. He said they looked like fire ants standing upright. Fighter jets soon flew over the site and military personnel appeared and took over the site. Jose and his friend were told to stay out of the area. The next days, the military cleaned up the wreckage while Jose and his friend hid behind a cactus in the distance and watched the crew work. At one point, the soldiers took a break. That was when Jose and his friend moved in closer. When they got up to the UFO, there was no one around, so they decided to go inside the craft. Inside, there were broken parts everywhere. Jose looked at what he said looked like a dial, and he pulled it off its surface. He didn't know what it was, but he took it. This is the piece of the UFO that he took. A strange device that no one has been able to determine its use. It's speculated that it's a turning mechanism for a dial. Jose had the metals tested in 2015. The results came back as a mixture of aluminum, silicon, and copper. Nothing out of the ordinary. Many machine parts are made up of the same mixture. That being said, those elements are found off-planet as well as on Earth. So there is a possibility that if this device is extraterrestrial, it would not be unlikely to see these metals being used by other beings. Maybe even by fire ants standing upright, the size of children.
20 years ago, the town's most seductive woman became the victim of a brutal murder. 20 years later, a more beautiful, more seductive woman will face the same end.
I can't believe what I'm looking at.
The case they never solved.
Do your homework, Mr. Tibbs.
The case that defies explanation. A spectacular new heat of the night movie, The Case of the Voodoo Murders, next.
This crash, if it was an extraterrestrial ship, is, in my opinion, another example of aliens showing up when they think humans are putting Earth in jeopardy. I really like to believe that aliens look at us as animals with maybe a little bit too much power, and they come here to make sure we don't screw up the Earth for the rest of the universe. In a famous clip from Air Force pilot David Fravor, known for his infamous Tic Tac UFO footage, he told a story of a friend's experience in the Navy. The friend was a Navy helicopter pilot in the late 90s. He was flying a CH-53 helicopter off the coast of Puerto Rico. These are massive helicopters that are used to carry a variety of large objects. On 2 occasions, this pilot was over the ocean retrieving missiles. The first was when he was sent to pick up a BQM, a test missile that is shot into the water to collect data on how it operates underwater. The missile will release a flotation device and it will lift to the surface. The pilot flies the helicopter over the missile and the diver is lowered into the water where they hook it to a cable and lift it with the helicopter and take it away. When retrieving the BQM, the diver saw what looked like a dark circle-shaped surface coming up under the water toward him, like a floor coming up to the top of the water. Before it breached the surface, it stopped and went back down. On the second occasion, they were picking up a torpedo. The diver was lowered to the surface of the water, but before he could get to the water and hook the cable to the torpedo, another large, dark platform rose up from under the water toward him and the torpedo. The man operating the cable saw this happening below and started yelling to the pilot to get them out of there. Then the diver watched the torpedo get sucked down underwater toward the dark surface. Then this giant object lowered back down deep below the water. This pilot never told anyone about this until he told Commander Fravor after his experience became public. Commander Fravor said that once his story was out, all kinds of people came out of the woodwork. They all wanted to tell him their stories now that they had someone else who would understand what they saw.
It's an incredible tale of alien abduction.
There's definitely something going on.
See for yourself on Unsolved Mysteries.
It was $1 million heist, and you may hold a clue to catch the thief.
The monies are untraceable.
A bizarre highway attack leaves a town torn apart. and you could have the answer.
That's all we're missing. One small link. Someone out there has it.
Don't let him get away with it. Catch a Criminal on Unsolved Mysteries Wednesday.
So, did aliens visit the atomic bomb test site in 1945, only to crash and get discovered by young Jose Padilla? Did Jose sneak onto their spaceship and steal their compass? And now he's one of the only people on the planet to have alien technology? Well, if you're asking me, yes, definitely. But if you want further proof, then you're just gonna have to keep watching this channel, because once the truth comes out, I'll be here to tell you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.